Hello and welcome to another episode of For Zion's Sake, the CUFI UK podcast. My name is Alex and I'm joined here by Alastair.
Hello.
And the last living hostages have been released from Gaza. And this is a time of celebration for Israel. It's a wonderful thing. But what does this peace deal mean for Israel? Can Hamas be trusted?
Well, no, Hamas cannot be trusted. And we look ahead at what might be next and more about this peace deal. And we would like to know what you think about the events that have taken place this week. So, Alex, for 2 years, we have been praying for, longing for, hoping for, looking towards the release of all of the remaining hostages. And this week, of course, we have had the good news that all 20 living hostages have been released and are now safely home in the state of Israel. So amazing, fantastic news. We rejoice with Israel and the Jewish people. Of course, we are also very mindful that for many of the families also awaiting for the bodies of their loved ones, that Hamas, at the point of doing this podcast, has not fulfilled its commitment as part of the deal. So I was thinking earlier whether to take my yellow lapel pin badge off and my yellow wristband off, and I nearly did, and then I remembered the fact that there are still the bodies of the hostages that have not yet been returned. So I'm going to keep it on until we hear otherwise, until it is, and if Israel says it's not possible, until we know, then we're going to continue to stand in solidarity with those who are waiting for their loved ones to return.
Yeah.
But we're going to cover all of that.
Yep.
But first of all, let's just acknowledge the fact that this has been the end of a very, very difficult period for the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
And how we are really, really rejoicing with the Jewish people.
Yeah, definitely.
About this outcome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the scenes we saw the other day when the hostages were released, they were reuniting with their families, and we saw just the raw emotion, the joy, the happiness of mothers and fathers and siblings and boyfriends and girlfriends and so forth, reuniting with their loved ones. It's so heartwarming, and so it stirs your emotions as you see that, because like you said, for 2 years these people have been separated. They've not even known in some cases if their loved one was still alive, because they were trying to work out who was alive. And so it was a day of celebration on the Monday when they came home. The whole of Israel celebrated. The world breathed a sigh of relief as the hostages were brought home, and as there was hope, or there is hope, that the war is now coming to an end. And, as you said, there is still work to be done. The trauma of the hostage families, for those who have not received the bodies back, that is still ongoing. But we should be celebratory, because actually, every living hostage is now back they are free. And people have been saying, actually, it's for the first time in 2 years. Well, actually, it's the first time in 11 years that there hasn't been an alive Israeli hostage in Gaza, because there were actually 2 hostages that came back during these deals earlier on in the previous deal who were actually kidnapped by Hamas long before this actually happened and took place. So actually, it's the first time in 11 years that there's no living Israeli hostages in Gaza. Yeah,
we are beginning to hear the stories come through from the hostages, returned hostages, 3 Israelis.
Yeah,
let us call them that now, and from members of their families who have now been able to have now reunited. And it is harrowing to hear the trauma that they went through, the physical trauma, the beating, the being kept in tunnels, not knowing where they're being kept, being separated by from other hostages, and also the the mental trauma that Hamas were basically imposing on them. And I read a couple of stories of a couple of hostages being given misinformation about loved ones back home. There was one hostage who was told their grandparents have died. There was another one who was told that their girlfriend had been set free, had been released, when actually they hadn't been. And all of this emotional manipulation,
psychological sort of,
absolutely awful. Then, of course, there's the feeding, the non-feeding. It would appear that a consistent testimony is that in the last couple of weeks, some of the hostages reported that they were fed more as the deal was being negotiated.
Yeah.
But yeah, harrowing things. Just really what took place on October the 7th, 2023, which was barbaric and brutal, did not end on October the 7th. For these hostages, it continued for 738 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like you said, everything that Hamas did, it was psychological torture. They were, even giving back the hostages in the state that they were given back in, which is better fed than they've been for, like you said, 2 years, 738 days. Even that was part of the psychology of Hamas, where they wanted to present it that they had treated the prisoners or the hostages in a better way than they were actually treated, even though beforehand they were releasing. There's one particular hostage who was filmed and pictured digging his own grave, and he looked like skin and bones. And then when he was released, actually, he looked in better health because, whilst they were in captivity, they wanted to scare Israelis and make them fear that the hostages were being treated badly, which they were. And then when they released them, they're trying to fool the world and say, we treated them really well. And the other flip side of that, Israel treats its prisoners, and bearing in mind a lot of the prisoners that were released in this deal that were Palestinian prisoners in Israel, almost all of them were terrorists with blood on their hands.
Yes.
There were some of them where they looked in perfectly fine health, but they were feigning that they were being starved and all the rest of it, and they were being carried off buses in this big it was a propaganda film I saw.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's Pallywood, as we call it, where they were literally pretending that they were injured when they weren't, and on the Israeli side they were walking out in good health when the whole time they weren't treated well.
Yes. And I heard the Sky News reporter reporting on the prisoners being released, Palestinian prisoners being released, and them saying in a very monotone voice, but there are no state hospitals for these prisoners to return to.
That's absolutely rubbish.
I know. As if you knew exactly what they were implying.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, the funny thing with that is, for the last 2 years, we've been seeing headlines almost every week of Gaza's last hospital, or, the one remaining hospital with power. And it's a different hospital every single time. It's like, actually, when Israel's been striking hospitals, it's because Hamas has hidden bases and weapons underneath it, or they've been using it as a military base, or they've been holding hostages inside them.
Yeah, and even then, the hit is dubious, isn't it? Right?
Exactly.
You're right. How many last hospitals does Gaza have?
Yeah,
it's almost like that man who faked Israeli killing him 30 times.
Yeah,
right. And then you probably heard about this. Then this week was actually killed, but he was killed not by Israel. He was killed by some of the Gazan-based militia groups.
Yes, exactly.
That are turning on Hamas.
Yes, exactly.
We might come on to that in a while, but I just want to say it's like this propaganda just has been ongoing. But let's just get back to the hostages, if we can, because one of there are so many beautiful pictures of reuniting, of parents with their children, grandparents, friends, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. It was just so emotional just to see that raw raw emotion. And I think one of the pictures which was in our memory following October the 7th was the kidnapping of Noah. Noah Argamani and her boyfriend, Avinatan, or both of them. You might remember those still images of Noah being on the back of a motorcycle, being taken by her kidnappers into Gaza, and her boyfriend Avinatan, who was there, grasping the air, trying to appeal for her not to be taken. And then this week, reunited. Noah, of course, reunited after 200 and something days earlier.
Yeah, 245
I must
days.
just say, not released, actually. Rescued.
Yes, yeah. She was rescued
by the IDF.
Yeah.
And then we've seen her image at various public events petitioning for the release of all the remaining hostages, which included her boyfriend. And then, of course, they were reunited this week. And I just want to share this testimony from Avinatan's father, Yaron, who said his son was held in complete isolation, cut off from all other hostages. He had no books or human contact for 2 years. At one point, he was given a Rubik's Cube. Hamas captors told him his girlfriend, Noah, had been released, even though at the time she was still in captivity. He was kept in a tiny cage, barely large enough to lie down. At 6'5", he couldn't stand. He was chained inside this cage for more than a year of his captivity. At one point, while being moved between tunnels, Avinatan saw a chance to escape, but his attempt failed. After that, his captors tightened his conditions and beat him. His father said he knew there was a war and he thought it should be ended even at the expense of the hostages. He told the Prime Minister that he thought he would be held for years until the war ended, and that this was what needed to happen. He's a unique person. Meanwhile, his girlfriend, Noah, wrote on Instagram, 2 years. 2 years have passed since the last moment I saw my beloved Avinatan. 2 years have passed since the moment terrorists kidnapped us, put me on a motorcycle, and separated me from Avinatan in front of the whole world. From that moment on, we began our separate journeys. I was held captive with children, women, and adults, while Avinatan was alone the whole time. I was held inside houses most of the time, while Avinatan was only in tunnels. Hamas released videos and life signs from me while there was no information at all about Avinatan. I was held captive by Hamas for 246 days, while Avinatan was 738 days. I returned in a rescue, and Avinatan returned in a deal. Both of us, against all odds, returned home and were reunited. I cannot explain in words the range of emotions I felt when I saw him for the first time after so long. Each of us has seen death before our eyes on so many occasions, and yet, after 2 years apart, we are finally taking our first step together in the state of Israel. Finally, we can both begin our rehabilitation together. The rehabilitation is still long. We haven't really been able to digest what has happened here in the last 2 years, but we won. We won our personal war and the war of the whole world that fought with us to reach this moment, and now it's time for us to begin our common journey together. I want to say a huge thank you first and foremost to the soldiers and security forces who have been fighting for so long and risking their lives for us every day. Thank you to family, friends, and everyone who made our voices heard when we couldn't speak. To all the people of Israel and the entire world who embraced us, to all the wonderful people who supported us in the difficult times and never lost hope during this long period, to the American administration that opened the door for me and was always there to listen, especially to President Trump, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner who stood by us to bring back Avinatan and all the kidnapped and helped us overcome the darkness. We will not forget for a moment the fallen and the murdered. We will not stop fighting until all the dead return home for a proper burial in Israel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This could never have happened without you. We are back.
Cool. Yeah.
And I thought I'd read the whole thing because there you go. That is one or two stories reunited together. And there are other stories as well, many other stories of those who survived or those who went through, and we need to really acknowledge Am Israel High, the nation of Israel lives.
Amen. And that's the thing. There's so many stories from so many angles about what happened on October 7th, and this, just because they're back now doesn't mean we will stop telling the story. They are it's almost like Holocaust survivors. October 7th survivors are another group of people who will be speaking about this for the whole of their lives and sharing it on to future generations so that people understand the anti-Semitic hatred there is against Israel and the Jewish people and what they managed to survive. And that's actually an amazing story, because these are two people who, when they were at the Nova Festival, when they were kidnapped, they were only together. They weren't with their whole families and things. So they went in together. They were the only people they knew in captivity, and they both managed to come out the other side. Whereas actually so many other stories we hear where it's maybe a family that got abducted in their home, and actually not all of them came out alive. And there's many stories of families being ripped apart and things. That is a miracle what happened to them, what they went through. I just want to share another story, because we're not going to, this isn't the whole thing about sharing stories, this sort of off the cuff as we're doing it. But there's one gentleman, Bar Cooperstein. He was 23, and 5 years ago, his dad had a stroke. Well, he had a car crash and then suffered a stroke, and he was, for 5 years, he was paralyzed and unable to speak.
Yes.
When he was 23, he was kidnapped when he was 21, taken into Gaza, came out, and his father not only could speak, but also, with a bit of assistance, stood up and welcomed him on his feet. So, what a testimony.
And just to add to that, my understanding of the story as well is that his father said that he really made every effort in his rehabilitation in the hope and the belief that once his son was returned, that he would be able to stand and greet him and speak to him. And he said that was his motivation in the rehabilitation.
Amazing, isn't it?
There's no words.
Really, and that is Israel. These stories are what makes Israel so unique. Their national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. That is the whole sort of mindset of Israel, is that they have hope. They have hope for the dwelling in the land, hope for what God's going to do for them. They don't let go of that hope, and it really is powerful. And
it's biblical. The Bible promises the children of Israel a future and a hope.
Yep.
And that's, they say, that's the anthem, Hatikva. But also, Israel is hope. Israel is life. They celebrate life.
Yeah.
Even now, there is this plea that every Israeli hostage that is deceased returns home to the land of Israel, back to their families, and there is just such an acknowledgement of this idea of leaving no person behind. Israel is a celebration of life, and it's that which runs through for all those who live in Israel. Jew, Arab, Israel is a beacon of light to the whole world. And you contrast that with the barbarism, the evil ideology of Hamas. And maybe, shall we just move on to some of those things? Because I think it's important to also talk about the deal which has enabled the return of all of the hostages. It's an incredible deal. But right now, Hamas, in the last 3 days, are, terrorist groups in Gaza, I should say, are now fighting Hamas, not because they want to fight for democracy. They're hiding before control.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And Hamas doing public beheadings.
Public executions.
Well, public executions. I think there's around 30 executions. 7 of them were beheadings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so, Hamas is still in control of Gaza.
Yeah. Or at least they're trying to show that to the Gaza
Well, they're
people.
trying to show them.
And
that's true.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is, when Hamas is fighting a war with Israel, they're doing it in plain clothes. They're breaking all international law.
Yeah.
Every war crime you can imagine Hamas has committed. And now that Israel is out of the picture because Israeli troops have withdrawn to certain areas, Hamas are then putting on their military gear, showing their force, holding their weapons, and using their weapons against the Palestinians. And it just, like you said, Hamas haven't kept their end of the bargain yet. They've not released all the hostages. They've not disarmed.
No.
We don't know what is going to happen in this period of time.
No. President Trump has said that if Hamas do not disarm, then they will be disarmed violently if necessary.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, that's what Israel has been trying to do this whole time. And it should be noted that a few weeks ago, the world was telling Israel not to attack certain areas, not to go in and so forth. But actually, I think, and also with Israel obviously striking the terrorist leaders in Qatar, in Doha, again,
yes,
it was something which gave Hamas leaders the impression that, hang on a second, we're not safe here.
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize, because not only do we, let's acknowledge the fact that this has been quite an incredible achievement for President Trump and his team to have struck this ceasefire.
Yeah.
But actually also, as you rightly say, supporting Israel's right to defend itself and its right to do what it has done militarily in trying to bring the hostages home and to end Hamas's rule over Gaza has put Hamas in the corner, which has actually forced in this ceasefire. And again, that strike in Qatar, even though I've heard people saying that they almost messed it up. No, actually, they showed the Qataris, if anyone else, but the world, that they mean business in getting rid of Hamas.
Yeah.
And so I think it's all contribution, really, whilst Western leaders, our own UK government, have been saying, you mustn't do this, you mustn't do that, you mustn't do the other.
Yeah.
Well,
Israel proved them wrong. And I think that's the thing. With the deal that has been struck, it is Qatar, and Turkey who are involved in these negotiations. I know Saudi Arabia behind the scenes, Egypt, obviously a lot of negotiations there. They're actually the ones who are saying, right, actually, we're not going to support Hamas anymore. Yes. We can see that America means business, Israel means business. Hamas is no longer worth our time and effort. So Hamas has lost its funders. It's Qatar has said, you have to disarm. Now, Hamas is a terrorist group. They are funded heavily by Qatar, and they have the same ideology as the Qataris. But unfortunately, Hamas is a rogue agent sort of thing. Who knows what Hamas is going to do? And actually, right now, I think it's the Palestinians who are going to be needing protection from Hamas. The Gaza Strip is going to be needing protection from
civilians.
And so forth. Because actually Israel, even though it still wants its hostages back, and I should point out, one of the main reasons why Israel wants its bodies back, first of all, it's the right thing to do so that the families can properly mourn and grieve and get through the trauma. But second of all, in Jewish law, when you are buried, you have to be buried as you are born, meaning fully your full self. Right. So there's no cremation, there's no, so they have to be buried the way they're born. And so what that means is when a Jewish person dies, they have to be buried as quickly as possible. No one is allowed to leave the body, or not no one is allowed to leave the body. The body is not allowed to be left alone. So someone will stay with the body the whole time until they are buried in the ground. And normally they're buried within 24 hours. On October 7th, and that's the law, that's the Jewish law. And so on October 7th, you had people being burned alive, you had people being dismembered, you had people obviously being taken into Gaza and taken away. And so they weren't able to fulfill the rituals and the rites that they go through in order to bury their loved ones. And in some cases, for example, they could only find certain, like when there was bodies that were incinerated, they couldn't find all the body parts. So they had they literally had people going and collecting as much as they could so that they could bury as much of that person as they could, because in the Jewish mindset, if they don't bury the whole person, they're not buried. And that's why it's so important for them to get the bodies back. And
as well.
Yes. So there's multiple reasons to it. And it's actually a lot deeper than people realize, because even with what you're saying about the land, like Israel, the Jewish people, they are tied to that land. God himself bound the Jewish people to that land.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of times where Jewish people will pass away here in the UK and they'll immediately get flown to Israel and buried in Israel, because they want to make sure that they are there in the land.
Yeah.
And I think there's something prophetic about that as well. When Jesus returns, it talks about the dead being raised and so forth. I think they're looking to the return of Messiah, which they don't see as Jesus. Obviously, we do see it as Jesus. But it's all connected with the Bible. It's all connected with the land. It's all connected with what God told them to do. And that's why it's so important. And so some people may not realize the sort of the emotional and spiritual connection that Israel have to needing to have the bodies of their loved ones back. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that just, again, it illustrates the character of Hamas, which is evil.
Yep.
Even now, as we do this podcast, there have been 4 bodies returned to Israel. And one of those, the Israeli authorities has identified as not being an Israeli hostage. Yeah. So Hamas has returned a body of an unknown Gazan and still is withholding the other bodies. So, this is absolutely evil. And even though there is a ceasefire, there is a peace deal.
Yep.
We have to just be wary of the fact that until Hamas is completely removed, there is still a threat to Israel in place, and Hamas still needs to be completely removed. But as President Trump has said, the first stages of this 20-point plan have been fulfilled, almost. I mean, albeit with the release of the bodies, but the release of the hostages, and that is what we have been praying for for a long time now, for 2 years. Can we just talk about this peace deal, or this willed peace, as what has perhaps been portrayed in the quite incredible and almost surreal, I would say, occasion on Monday where President Trump and all of these world leaders, and let's just acknowledge the huge part that Britain had in this peace deal. I think we have to put on record. Just everything we did behind the scenes as a country in trying to derail this peace plan, right? Yeah. It has gone largely unnoticed, but we just want to put it across there. Yeah, tireless work on trying to derail it.
Yeah, and obviously, Alastair's joking around there. The UK, unfortunately, they could have had a great role in bringing peace, but instead they sided.
Maybe our international friends might just need explaining the fact that in all of the fanfare this week, that the UK did make a statement to say, actually, we were very much involved.
Yeah, even though they never got thanked by anyone because they didn't really do that much.
No. In fact, we recognised a Palestinian state with Hamas still in charge.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things.
Well, not we.
No, as in the UK.
The UK.
Government did. Yes, it's such a shame because, as well, we saw when the leaders were meeting, Macron, who's one of the other people who have recognised the Palestinian state, so France, UK, Canada, Australia, and others. But Macron, again, was trying to push Abbas as, the person to meet with Trump and all the rest of it. And it just shows that they're still clinging on to this old way of thinking when it comes to the Palestinians, which is that they want to push this 2-state solution and they want to push the agenda of like inserting the Palestinian Authority over Hamas and so forth. Well, first of all, it's not democratic. If you want to free Palestine, you have to give them democratic rights, which that's not doing if you're forcing a government on them. Second of all, and also, by the way, the Palestinian Authority is not democratic because Abbas was elected for 4 years and he's on his like 21st year or something. But it just shows like the difference between what Trump is trying to achieve and what the Americans are trying to achieve compared to what the European nations and a lot of the more sort of liberal democracies out there are trying to achieve. And I think it just shows the sort of what is it? The weakness of it or the futility of what they're trying to do? I don't know.
Well, it's a compromise as well. I'm not sure if you heard Keir Starmer's speech in Sharm el Sheikh. We have an excerpt of it now. There you go.
Yeah.
And no, our foreign policy is outdated.
Yeah.
It is biased towards the Palestinians.
Yeah.
It has failed to really recognize the barbarity of Hamas, even though we might say so. It is rewarding their terrorism.
Yeah.
And it really has failed to be a loyal and true partner of Israel. What's quite interesting, I think, is that previous ceasefires have sort of been on Israel's terms in a way.
Yeah.
This, which of course has the full agreement of the State of Israel, is terms which have been acknowledged now by many leaders of the world, including European leaders, including Arab leaders, including Israel's leaders. And so this ceasefire has been internationally recognized. So if Hamas breaks the ceasefire, then Hamas is to be fully held to account for it.
Yeah.
And so there can be no excuses. In my mind, they've already broken the ceasefire, okay? But there we go.
Yeah.
But we want it to obviously stay intact because, we do want peace in the region. But I think there's a lot of questions. And a number of people have asked the question, well, I have a bit of an uneasy feeling about this and about the whole peace treaty and everything like that. And I don't, personally speaking, I don't think we should detract in any way the huge accomplishment that President Trump's administration has achieved through this negotiations, and the very fact that Israel has welcomed it and it has facilitated the return of all the hostages and Israel has blessed it effectively is, I think, reason why we should get fully behind it. But we are still to remain as watchmen on the walls.
Yes.
And there is a great omission in this peace deal. There are some very important countries that are not involved, that were not at that press conference in Sharm el Sheikh. And one of those is the world's leading, the world's leader in terrorism in the Middle East and around the world. And that is the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah.
Now, Iran had a huge blow, and it should be acknowledged, the fact that Israel, in taking out virtually Hezbollah's whole infrastructure, setting back Iran a couple of years in its nuclear program,
with the help of America,
has certainly subdued the threat of Iran on the surface. But I think Iran will be looking on, seeing its Sunni rivals, the Sunni Muslim rivals,
Sunni.
Thank you, Alex. Its Sunni rivals looking on and seeing this alliance formed with the West, which I think is prophetic, actually, seeing this coalition of countries.
Yeah.
And Iran, I think, will be feeling left out, not in the sense of not being included, but the very fact that they can see a strengthening of alliance, which is backing Israel, the country that it has vowed to wipe off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So I think we should take a look at it, observe, to pray for Israel's security, because Iran has Iran has shown no intention or willingness at all to be a party that is part of this peace which has been celebrated this week.
Yeah.
Not at all. Quite to the contrary. And then we have some parties which I am concerned might well turn its back on Israel.
Yeah.
And one of those is Turkey and Erdogan. And there are probably a few others as well. All I'm trying to say is that, yes, of course, as people who want peace and want stability in the region, for Israel's sake, this short term, and I would say in the overall global scheme of things, is temporary peace, is not necessarily perpetual world peace. In fact, any peace that is not divine but democratic is temporary and fragile and can be broken as quickly as it can be formed.
Yeah,
so I think as Christians, it's helpful to have that perspective. I don't think we should necessarily therefore say that there is some dangerous agenda which is secretly being... No, I just think the very fact that maybe, perhaps, we are seeing the start of or part of or leading towards some kind of fulfillment of biblical prophecy that may well all come together, and this stage is being set. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I would agree on that. I mean, we, as CUFI, we have lots of people who support Israel from a Christian perspective, and we have lots of people from different points of view, so they might have different end-time theologies and so forth. But I think one of the things we all generally agree on is Israel is important to God. Israel was chosen by God in the past, and God still has a plan and a purpose for Israel. And also, we all look to the return of Jesus, the second coming of Jesus, the Messiah. And so, as Christians, that's what we're looking for. We obviously don't see eye to eye necessarily about the timings of everything and all the different ways in which this will come about. So, we have had people contact us saying this is the deal of Daniel 9, or I think it is Daniel 9 or Daniel 7. This is the deal that's going to be in place for that, or is Trump the Antichrist, or is Kushner the Antichrist, or is someone else the Antichrist, that sort of thing. Obviously, everyone's speculating on what it could be. My personal view is like yours. I don't see this as the deal of the Bible that is spoken about, which will be broken in the future. I see this as a temporary truce which will give Israel a bit of respite.
Yes.
And we have to look at it in perspective of, in 1948, for example, Spurgeon, he said, as soon as the state of Israel is formed, as soon as the Jewish people go back to the land, Jesus will return. That was a Spurgeon sort of viewpoint. Well, we know the Jews came back to the land, and actually Jesus hasn't returned yet. There was the 1948 war.
Yeah, well, the very next day that Israel was formed.
Yeah. That's right. There's the 1948 war. Which the War of Independence, which went on for months. There was the 6-Day War, 1967, the Yom Kippur War, 1973. Each one of these ended with a peace deal.
Yeah.
The first Intifada, the second Intifada, they ended with a peace deal, right?
Yeah.
So we always have to look at it, right? Yes, peace deals, we are warned against a certain peace deal in the future.
Yes.
But Israel is going to have peace deals, and it's probably going to have more wars and more peace deals until it gets to a point where all of its enemies are at peace with it.
Yes.
Which includes Iran, which includes Turkey, which includes everyone, right?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I mean, I certainly wouldn't claim to state what this is. I know what it is not.
Yeah.
And I think as watchmen, we just need to observe. And I agree with you, because behind all of this is, we have to remember that Satan's agenda is to destroy Israel, and actually to attack the covenant that God made with Israel.
Yeah,
that is at the very epicenter, and the covenant He made, with the Jewish people. So yes, anything which brings peace to Israel is actually going to gnaw at the conscience of those who hate Israel.
Yeah.
So we need to be on our guard, and we've got to celebrate with Israel because we want peace, we love peace, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Why do we pray for the peace of Jerusalem
Yeah.
if we are to always speculate the doom? But we have to be aware that there are things ahead that the Bible says that will come about, but God will come to Israel's defense and deliver his people.
Definitely.
So actually, the end result is that God will be glorified and will be exalted because of the fact that he will save Israel from their enemies.
Yep, amen to that.
Psalm 83 says, "Do not keep silent, O God, do not hold your peace, and do not be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against your people, and consulted together against your sheltered ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." That is the anti-Semitic motivation, the spirit behind Israel's enemies and all those who detest seeing the Jewish people live safely and securely as an independent nation in their historic ancestral homeland.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what Iran and Iran's allies cannot stand.
Yeah.
And there have been many other empires, tribes, nations and entities that have tried to cut off the nation, cut off Israel from being a nation. And they have now been consigned to history.
Yeah.
They are no more. And that's the story of all of those enemies that have come up against Israel, and that will be the story of Hamas.
Yeah.
They have already determined their destiny of demise.
Exactly.
So whatever we might be seeing, and we might be seeing the end of Hamas, but whatever it is, they will not succeed. Israel will win.
Yep, exactly.
And if a confederation of nations come against Israel, as the Bible says, I can keep reading, right? Right? They've consulted together with one consent, they form a confederacy against you. And it goes on, right? They will not win.
Exactly.
We are on the winning side, so we can take hope and heart at that, I hope.
Exactly. And the reason why, like you actually said earlier, is for God's glory. It's not because the Jews are special or the Jews are chosen or there's anything other than that. It's because
even though
they are. Yes, they are chosen and special. Like what I'm saying is, it's not because they did anything. It's
not conditional.
No, and it's because God chose them.
Yes,
we are saved by the grace of God, just as Israel is chosen by the grace of God. And God planned all of this out from the very beginning, so that in the future, when the world goes against Israel, because the whole world is turning against Israel, I think one thing that has been the most prominent out of all of since October 7th is the world turning against Israel very strongly.
Yes.
But as the world grows in that hatred against Israel, the entire world will aim to wipe out Israel from the map. And it will be at that point where Israel's only hope is to turn to God, and the world will see the God of Israel defending his people, and the whole world will know who Jesus is, who God is. And that's an amazing thing. Like God has it all planned out. So we shouldn't fear when Israel is attacked. We shouldn't fear when we see anti-Semitism growing. This is a natural thing that is, predicted in the Bible. And we were talking before, we've always looked at the world turning against Israel. And I have to say, this is a personal thing that I've come to realize in the last couple of years. I used to think that the hatred against Israel from the world was the UN. I thought to myself, it's only governments. And we know here, our government doesn't always represent the people. It can be voted in, democracy can be voted in, and actually the majority of people don't support the government. Most governments in the world are dictatorships, and they're not voted in. So I thought to myself, it must be the UN, the whole world going against Israel that way, and they're just voting against Israel and so forth. Actually, since October 7th, we've seen the propaganda against Israel, which would make Goebbels blush. You know what I'm saying? It's like the anti-Semitic propaganda, which is not just coming out of the deep, dark corners of the internet. It's coming out in plain sight from the media, from the United Nations, from NGOs and charities and human rights organizations. It's coming out from governments. It's coming out from leaders. You know, it's coming out from every angle, and it is turning hearts and minds against Israel. And so I've realized now that actually the hatred of Israel is going to be a global thing. We are going to see anti-Semitism increase. I don't mean this to be, it's so morbid and like doom and gloom, but ultimately we are seeing hearts and minds change. The attitudes against Israel in the public are troubling. We need to
recognize that the anti-Semitism that we are witnessing is just on a level that we've not seen before in our lifetime, and not since, World War II.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable that on the weekend that a peace deal is announced, which brings an end to war in Gaza.
Yeah.
Okay. Something that the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel movement has been calling for on the streets of London and other UK cities for 2 years, more than 2 years.
Yep.
Right. That on that very day, instead of saying, great, we've been calling for an end to the war, end of the war has now arrived, they're calling to globalize the Intifada.
Yeah.
They're calling for the destruction of Israel from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
When I hear that a war in Gaza has come to an end, meaning that the hostages are all being released and Israel no longer has to fight for its survival, I'm pleased for Israel, and I'm pleased for the people of Gaza who do not have to live in the middle of a war.
Yeah, exactly.
But those who are pro-Palestinian movement, who are protesting, if you want to call them protests, they're not, right? They could not care.
No.
I'm sorry, they could not care, actually, for an end to the war, because they want war against Israel more than they want peace for the Palestinians.
100%.
And so we have that example. We have another example of on the very day that there was a terrorist attack in the city of Manchester at a synagogue in the city where two Jewish worshippers were killed, and where the terrorist was a declared supporter of ISIS and, of course, a jihadist, as his name stated. Right? This awful, horrendous anti-Semitic attack, which has not only shaken up the Jewish community in Manchester, but the Jewish community across the United Kingdom, and has increased security across every synagogue across the country because of the fear of reciprocal attacks, that on that very day, anti-Israel protesters got onto the streets calling for an intifada against the Jewish people globally.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. It is evil. It is demonic. And this anti-Semitism, which Hamas believes in and Hamas carries out in Gaza, is no longer on our doorstep. It's in our midst.
Yeah.
It's among us. And we have to speak out against anti-Semitism. Because if we truly stand with Israel, then we have to call out anti-Semitism wherever it exists.
Yeah.
And likewise, a message to our government is that if you truly stand against anti-Semitism, against Jew hatred in this country, you should stand against Jew hatred on the borders of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all those who seek its demise.
Yeah, exactly.
That is standing up against anti-Semitism.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem we have is people do not recognize the difference between the anti-Israel protesters and the anti-Semitic hatred there is. And the reality is there is no difference. They are one and the same. You know, hatred against Israel equals hatred against the Jews. Hatred against, you know, when they say death to the IDF or whatever they say, that means dead Jews. Like you said, they want to see Israel wiped out from the river to the sea. They want the Intifada globalized. It was globalized when the Manchester synagogue attack happened. But the thing is, these people are the same people who, when Iran fired the largest ballistic missile attack in history at Israel, they cheered Iran and hoped for dead Jews.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same group who, when the Houthis sent drones into Israel, they shouted, or when they attacked the shipping lanes, they shouted, "Yemen, Yemen, make us proud, turn another ship around," bearing in mind that 85,000 children starved to death in Yemen because of, and just in the last decade, because of famine there, far more than were killed by Israel in Gaza. What I'm saying is, every group that attacked Israel, they cheered and chanted for. And it's exactly the same. Ben Jamal from Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, he was being interviewed yesterday on Sky News, and they said to him, are you happy that the hostages are home? And he completely diverted the question and went off about Israel's atrocities and so forth and so on and so forth. The guy then tried to bring him back at the end of the interview and said, "Look, will you say that you are happy that the hostages have returned?" And he refused to. He basically said, "Look, I'm a peace activist. I'm happy when any person who's imprisoned, who shouldn't be imprisoned, is returned." And he was equating the prisoners and the hostages.
Not only that, but he just simply wasn't.
He wasn't going to acknowledge it. And just think about that. That, we can honestly say we are happy that, when Gazans are fed. We are happy when Gazans are not being killed, even though we don't blame Israel for those things, because it's Hamas that is responsible. We don't hate the Gazans. We don't hate the Palestinians.
We're Christians who are supposed to want peace and love peace. And
and we're like, I'll say this, as Christians, one thing the church has not said, like all of these pro-Palestinian Christians, the Pope, the Archbishop, so forth, none of them have been saying the Palestinians need Jesus, Gaza needs Jesus. None of them have been bringing Jesus into it. They've just been, I hate Israel, I hate the Jews. It is, in my opinion, it's not Christian.
No.
And so, we have to love our enemy. God said, "Bless those who curse you, pray for those who sin against you," etc. So we love our enemies, but the enemy hates us. The enemy hates Israel.
And also,
we have to understand that.
Part of it has been fueled by the propaganda against Israel. If you speak to these people, the reason why they don't want, why they can't articulate with their mouth that all they have to say is, "Yes, I'm pleased that the hostages have been released from captivity." The reason they cannot say it is because they have demonized and actually dehumanized these Jewish hostages to the extent that they now see them as almost being like enemy. And they just can't come to say it.
And that's why you see people ripping down the yellow ribbons.
Yes, we saw that last week. We saw that,
And I don't know who said it.
In London somewhere, I think.
But I don't know who said it, but they said if you put up a sign for a missing dog in London, it will be there for months. You put up a sign for a missing Jewish baby, it will get torn down. Just think about that.
I think that says it.
Yeah,
I think that says it.
Terrible.
And so, as we come to the end of this podcast, as I think we will wrap up now.
Sorry it's been doom and gloom when we should be celebrating, but we have to be realistic. We have to be watchmen.
Absolutely. But we do rejoice this week with the Jewish people. We're standing with the Jewish community. And let's recognise that the war on anti-Semitism is not over.
As watchmen, our job is still ongoing.
Yes,
no time.
It is still ongoing. We must still continue to speak out. We must still continue to fight against anti-Semitism. And at CUFI, that is exactly what we are doing. We're endeavouring to do it. And with your support, with your help, we can be even more effective. So please, if you haven't already become a partner of Christians United for Israel, then please do visit our website where you can make a regular donation, or to make a one-off donation, please go to www.cufi.org.uk/donate. And thank you for your support. Thank you for standing with us.
Thank you.
But for now, as we need to go because Alex needs to claim his Nobel Peace Prize. But until next time, may the Lord be with you and bless you. Bye-bye.